It's April 25th, 2024, baby! Let's go! What is going on, everyone? My name is Flash, and man, I am a massive fan of The Flash. I own a lot of comics, and I do mean a lot of comics. And the thing about it is, I am not just a comics fan, I am a good fan of the CW show from 2014. It's actually how I got into the show, into The Flash in the first place. And one of the leading plot points of the show, it's actually one that actually happens throughout the entire series, is that the Reverse Flash has a news article pulled up that says, the Flash vanishes in crisis. And the date below it, it's actually you might be familiar with if you're seeing this on release, it says the 25th of April of 2024. Which, if I timed it right, should be the timing that this releases. Fingers crossed. And now, I of course don't know if CW or the team around the Arrowverse is going to do anything about it, because the fandom has been going crazy. And it's not just the Flash fandom, but of course the CW Arrowverse fandom is going crazy around this date, because we are expecting something to happen. We're expecting something big that tells about the vanishing of the Flash, and it would be very funny if they don't post anything because the Flash vanished. That would be so fun, and it would be so funny. It would be a good prank because we are expecting something, but the Flash did vanish. So, of course, that was never actually cleared up, and it was a Chekhov's gun that never went off. So we have been expecting the Flash to vanish, and we have been expecting this date both in world and in real life, and the date has come up now, and it's unfortunate because the show ended around a year ago, almost to the date. And they should have, and it's unfortunate that they didn't do a 10th season and extend it to a 10th season, because they could have aired something tomorrow, which at the time of this recording, of course, it's tomorrow for me, but at the time of upload it would be, let's just say, the Flash does time travel is the type of thing, okay? So I am here to talk about what might happen if they do release it. Like, what are they gonna cover? I personally think it's the running scared storyline from Rebirth, which was written by Joshua Williamson. Joshua really did a really good job. Essentially, what happens is the Reverse Flash goes and kidnaps Iris and takes her to the 25th century where he's from. So the Flash goes over there, and it's his second time going over there, and we get this flashback where we get to see when he first went to the 25th century and became friends with Eobard Thawne. And Eobard Thawne is, at that time, he is the Flash of that era. And so they become good friends over it, and the Flash tells him something, and he says, every second is a gift. And Eobard takes this to heart and keeps that phrase on him for a very long time. Now, the Flash then figures out that at the time, in the 25th century, crime wasn't a thing. The Flash wasn't needed. It wasn't required, because technology had advanced so much that essentially they all stopped before anything could happen. So he starts creating conflict. He starts creating crimes to happen, so that he could save them. And of course, a lot of people suffered. And the Flash figures this out. He sends him to prison, and Eobard spends his time bettering himself. And as he betters himself, he eventually becomes the curator of the Flash Museum. And so once he does that, he suddenly gets a time capsule that has the suit inside, and he harnesses it's the original Flash suit, and he harnesses the Speed Force remnants from it to recreate the event that actually struck Barry Allen the first time to give him his powers. So he goes back in time, and he meets Barry, and he meets him because he watches from far away, and he sees Barry Allen, just to show him how he has become better. And he actually changes his suit to yellow, not because it's the reverse colors of the Flash, but he changes it because Wally West, Kid Flash, and usually all of his sidekicks use yellow. So his plan was to become the the sidekick of the Flash. And then he gets to see Barry Allen at over at Wally West's graduation, and he gives him an inscripted clock, a watch that says on the back, "Every second is a gift." And so Eobard notices that that moment wasn't special, and whatever he thought about him was special to the Flash, to Barry Allen, wasn't special at all. And so he gets enraged, and that's how he starts to hate Barry. So he goes upwards in time and notices then that the Flash Museum, the Reverse Flash costume, which was said to be the Flash's greatest enemy, but for some reason, through the centuries, it was lost to time, the identity of the Reverse Flash. And so he finds out, of course, look at the suit, look at my hatred. And so, as he's getting so much hate for the Flash, his speed force changes into the negative speed force, and he does become and realize he was always the Reverse Flash. And so he goes back in time to ruin the Flash's life, and everything that happens. And so we get a lot of fights in these specific three chapters, with this issue 25 through 27 of the DC Rebirth storyline Running Scared, which is volume 5 of the Flash. So, this all happens, and this is essentially the backstory of Eobard Thawne, and it's something of the Reverse Flash, and it's something that's incredible that we never get to see. He keeps saying, "Oh, you ruined my life. This happened, but it's the one plot point, aside from the vanishing of the Flash, that we actually never get to see. And it's unfortunate because he's the final villain of the story. He is the overarching villain of the story. So how come we never get to see it? And when the series ends and we get to the finish line and we get to that fight over in the beginning of the show, in the origin story, we think it's a closed loop. We got where we started and all the way back. But it's actually not a closed loop because we're missing one key factor, which is the origin of the Reverse Flash. Because the origin of the Reverse Flash we know is created from the Flash, but the thing about it is the Flash is created from the Reverse Flash murdering his mother. So the only way for that to close is for us to actually see Eobard Thawne become the Reverse Flash. So if we're getting anything, I expect it to be that. And so in issue 27, what actually happens throughout those issues is that Eobard shows in the museum, he shows Barry in front of the kidnapped Iris in 2020. I almost said 2025. In the 25th century, he shows him how, because he vanished, because he was missing, which would be what happens because, of course, if he travels to the 25th century, while he's over there, there is a timeline where he is missing and has been missing for centuries because he's been gone. So, of course, if he comes back, it's all fine. But if he leaves, he gets to see a timeline where he literally vanished, where he was missing. And so the thing is, because he was missing, his two speedster children, Dawn and Dawn, which were the Thunderous Twins, the Tornado Twins, I think it's what they called, they become villains. And they start to roam around and destroy the entire city. And he gets to see that, how his children became villains because he was missing. And so that is extremely interesting. And in that part of the chapter, he shows him how he was essentially a liar and how he only kept endangering and hurting those around him. So he told them, if you die, that's not gonna change. And if I die, that's not gonna change. The only way is if you disappear. That's what the Reverse Flash tells Barry in issue 27. And so Barry agrees to be locked in a place where he can't do damage to anyone. And that is, of course, the negative speed force. And Eobard promises to take care of his family if he gets to lock him away. Of course, the Reverse Flash was never going to keep that promise, and so he locks him in there, and then he later gets out and steals the Reverse Flash's speed, which is what ends up happening the last time, and I put it in quotation marks, the last time that they face each other, because of course That is the actual place in the timeline where he last faces the Reverse Flash in the show, which is later when he becomes the Negative Flash, and it's this whole thing. But he to keep him in the show, to keep him from being erased from existence again, and instead being locked up, he steals the speedster powers away. Um, so of course, if we get to see, even if it's like a 20-minute special, if it's something, I just want it to be acknowledged because I think that the running scared storyline, it's only 3 chapters, but it's so good. It's so good. And if we get to see the actual closed loop, because it's just like I'm doing a lot of 3D programming, and the thing is, if you see a closed loop, sometimes you see, oh, that's a perfect circle. But then if you zoom in, there's like a small piece. Like if you look at this a close circle, but if you close in, there's like a little gap that's touching, and so you need to close that off. And this is what this is. The Reverse Flash. He was never actually. We never got to see his origin, and that is something that instead of seeing all this Still Force, Strength Force shit from season 7, which by the way I love Godspeed, that fucking ruined him. But if we had actually gone to see the Reverse Flash's origin story, that would have been the perfect one. So I think if we actually get to see the Flash Vanish in action, dude, that would be perfect. And I, as a comic fan, I would be so excited to see that and to see the Reverse Flash because there are about 3 canon origin stories. There's the Return of Barry, um, the the running scared storyline, and there is another one that I don't remember the name. There are 3 storylines where they are all canonical origin stories for the because of course the Reverse Flash, whenever the timelines change, he still remembers. Um, so they're all canonical, but if we get to see the storyline be adopted, that would be so good. That would be so good. So I really hope I'm right, or at least that they show something, that they and just acknowledge it in some way because it's such an important date. It's been literally 10 years in the making. So man, please don't waste this. And we also got to see, of course, in season 5, episode 18, we got to see that moment where Nora comes into the time vault and sees the message that Barry leaves her, where he says, "Oh, if you actually get to see that, this means not only do I have powers, but I wasn't there for you because he vanishes." And in a timeline where he vanished, he never gets to meet his daughter. She would technically still get to exist because this is a timeline that by him running to the future, it still gets to exist because he runs to the future, vanishes, and if he comes back, which would be fun if he doesn't, if he comes back, that timeline still existed. If only for a brief second, that timeline still existed, which means Nora can still travel back to season 5, season 7, season 8. She can travel all those times, and it wouldn't retcon it in any capacity. Like, oh, it was deleted, so how does she get? How is this part of history? It will still be part of history because that timeline always existed. It was never erased. It cannot be erased because it is a part of the thing, and so is the news article. So it's it would be perfect. It would legitimately be perfect. And by it being an origin story, also, it's not like, oh, Thawne came back again, and he comes back again and again and again and again, and it never ends, and it would feel a little bit bad if we got a special and it was anyone else. And it would feel bad if it's just the return of the Reverse Flash. But it would feel so good if it is the origin story of the Reverse Flash. So it would wrap up everything. And it would be a really nice excuse to come back. So, of course, I don't know if they're going to do anything. More than likely they won't. But I hope that by the time this comes up, that it hasn't come back so that you guys can see my theory and then see if I'm wrong a couple hours later. So, hey, thank you all so much. I will be doing another upload in a flash, and I will see you on the flip side. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.